Hello, everyone. We are back live for our final session of the conference. And I couldn't be more excited about the roundtable discussion that we're about to have. We have some amazing high-profile thought leaders here with a combined 30 plus years of higher ed experience. And we're going to talk about one of the most important topics that I can think of for higher education these days. And that's, of course, the demographic enrollment cliff that's looming. So very, very excited about our guest here. Let's welcome Jaime Hunt of Old Dominion University. We have Kristin Nichols, who is a higher ed consultant, and she has worked at multiple universities in the past. And we also have Dr. Allison Turcio of Siena College. And all three of them are experts on the demographic enrollment cliff. And I'm so thankful that they're sharing their knowledge with us today. Now, to set the stage for some of you who might not know exactly how we define the demographic enrollment cliff, let's just summarize what this cliff is all about. It basically refers to the expected drop in college and university enrollment, and that's particularly for the United States. And one of the root causes of it is a decrease in birth rates that happened after the recession in 2008. So the number currently of college-bound high school students is declining pretty drastically, which presents massive challenges, as you can imagine, for higher education. And those challenges and risks must be mitigated at all costs. And of course, this mitigation needs to be a multi-pronged effort that includes things like program offerings, delivery formats, strategic partnerships, and so on. But of course, today, this is a higher ed web conference. So we'll focus on what marketing can do and how marketing can help mitigate the demographic enrollment cliff. Please note that if we have time towards the end, I have no idea how it'll go, but if we have time towards the end, we'll definitely have some Q&A session lined up. So please go ahead and ask your questions in the chat here. And if we have time, we'll absolutely address them. So with that, let's have our wonderful speakers briefly introduce themselves. Who wants to start? Kristen, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you for including me in this wonderful conference. I'm Kristin Nichols, and for the past 23 years, I've worked in higher education, mostly in the greater Boston area, but also did a short stint down in Washington, D.C., working at various institutions in enrollment and in marketing roles. And I have made the shift to focus on consulting full-time, but I'm glad to be here and speak with you all about the enrollment cliff.
Wonderful. Allison, would you like to go next?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this topic. I am Allison Turcio. I'm Assistant Vice President for Enrollment and Marketing at Siena College. I'm host of the Application Podcast, and I'm the publisher of the Higher Ed Marketers Digest.
Awesome. And finally, Jaime.
Thank you so much for having me, and I love being on this panel with these wonderful women. I'm Jaime Hunt. I'm the Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at Old Dominion University and the host of Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO on the Enrollify Network. And I, like Kristen, have worked in higher ed for 20 years and just have loved every minute of it. And I'm happy to talk about this really important topic.
Wonderful. And we will post links to your podcast on the wall of the conference as well, so people can check that out. It's so much great thought leadership, so much great content. So thank you again for being here today. Let's start out with talking about the impact of the demographic enrollment cliff, because we can talk about mitigation, but I think it's very important for us to realize just how big this demographic enrollment cliff is. How big is the problem that we're trying to solve? So maybe we can start out by discussing what impact is the demographic enrollment cliff expected to have on colleges and universities, and then maybe dive into how it will possibly affect different types of organizations in different ways. Jaime, do you want to kick us off?
Absolutely. So when we think about the demographic enrollment cliff, there are a lot of challenges that it's causing in higher ed right now. One of the most significant being the financial strain that it's causing for institutions. We know the enrollment cliff has not hit its full force yet. That's expected to happen around 2026. But in the Midwest and in the Northeast, it has been a lot earlier for those areas. And you're seeing dramatic declines in enrollment at a lot of regional universities, small private universities, schools that, in my opinion, have not made a significant investment in brand and marketing. So they're sitting in a situation where they may be more reliant on tuition than they ever have been before. And they're stuck with the challenge of there being fewer and fewer students to attract to their campuses. We're seeing almost every day in the Chronicle or Inside Higher Ed some sort of layoffs or program eliminations, major challenges for these institutions. And I think that there's a lot that marketing can do to help our institutions get through this slump. There's also things I think institutions need to be thinking about in terms of their offerings and what we're providing to students. We saw with the pandemic, obviously, almost every campus shifted to either fully online or hybrid educational opportunities. And we are now seeing that there is a demand for hybrid education among our students in a way that we weren't seeing pre-pandemic. And the institutions that are really going to thrive in this slump in enrollment are going to be those that create offerings that draw students from the competition. Unfortunately, probably everybody on this, everyone on this panel and everyone listening right now is at an institution that is going to be considered somebody else's competition to draw students from. So I think the schools that have the savviest marketers are going to be the ones that are most successful.
Allison, Kristen, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would add that exacerbating the enrollment cliff is also some of the ways that we generate interest in our colleges. Those are changing as well. So for instance, there's millions of less test takers, so this idea that we're going to purchase names from the College Board and from Encora, who owns ACT, and then start marketing our colleges to them so they can get to know us and then, convert to an applicant and then convert to an admitted student and enrolled student. Many colleges are building their funnel, like 50% of their funnel, 50% of their enrolled class is coming from a source like that, a list source. But because of privacy laws and also just the number of people test taking, that is changing. We're not going to be able to go to them as much in that way, in that direct contact way. We're not going to get private information. We're not going to get contact information from students and be able to do that one-to-one outreach. So not only are there less students, the ways that we now communicate with the students are becoming less in a way. The way that we do it now, we're going to have to come up with new ways of communicating with them. And I think, we all know that the website is one of the most important marketing tools. That's a given. It's going to be even more important.
Yeah, just to kind of add on that, once the enrollment, we know it's coming, and here in Massachusetts and New England, it's here. But we're going to be dealing with this for about a decade or so, and what are we going to do? We need to level set, right? So make plans for balance, not necessarily a rebound. And what does that look like? I think it's important for institutions to be reviewing geographic shifts on a regular basis. Also, take a look at what programs are rising nationally and adapt to that and get those messages out as quickly as possible to potential students to prepare an institution for some level of security for the long term. So it is, the last few years of my career, it has been looking at geographic shifts away from New England. Where are people going? What's the potential for them to come back? There are no unicorns where you can look at your schools where you get a ton of students and say, we can get 2 more students out of this high school. Those days are probably over. And we need to adapt to just the malleability and the change that's happening on a regular basis in our industry.
Just a quick question here as an aside. Do you, and you mentioned, it's already happening, we're already feeling, some of the effects, even though the official cliff is not happening until 2025. But do you think that most colleges and universities, the people that are in charge, understand the severity of this, or do you have a feeling that they're still not taking this as seriously as it needs to be taken?
I think it depends on the institution. I really think that's hard to kind of lump everybody into the same category. Some people, some leaders are more understanding. Some are in a good place and saying, it hasn't hit our institution yet. We're going to be okay. So it varies based on, is it a flagship public? Is it a regional public? Is it a small private? I think that varies.
Yeah. And I think Jaime is the one that alluded to the fact that, obviously we're going to have to address this cliff in so many different ways. It's, it is the program offerings. It is looking at, different, demographics as well. It is about the messaging. So let's focus on just the recruitment and retention strategies. How can colleges and universities adapt their recruitment and retention strategies to address some of the challenges of this cliff? And then, as clearly we're a web conference, I would like to follow then up with what role does the website play in this effort?
I think that one thing that I don't think most marketing offices think hard enough about is our role in retention and the things that we can do to support the retention of students. When you think about enrollment, we often are really, really focused on bringing in a class and hitting that net tuition revenue and getting a freshman class of whatever, 3,100, 900, whatever your student body needs in order to replace those who are graduating. But we don't really always think about what retention looks like. One of the things that we're doing at Old Dominion University in that way is we're looking at that first year student journey from the moment that they are confirmed all the way through their entire first year to when we hand them off to their sophomore year. So looking at how can we make them feel connected, what points in their journey, what milestones exist that will be points that they might be likely to drop out or likely to give up or likely to hit friction. And the word there, friction, I think is where I can tie this back to the web. The web needs to have a truly frictionless experience for our audiences. They are used to that when they're dealing with consumer websites, B2C websites, when they're buying something from Amazon. It's incredibly frictionless. And unfortunately, higher education is really adept at adding friction in the process. We really like processes. I think we hire a lot of INTJs to set up how things work. And so you have a lot of steps that a student has to do that maybe aren't transparent. And we all have the curse of knowledge. We know what the jargon means. We know what a bursar is. Honestly, when I was in college, I had no idea what a bursar was. I didn't know what a FAFSA was. I didn't know what any of these things were. And then when you add like having to take and have a bunch of signatures on a piece of paper to get you through the next step, and we put a hold on someone's account because they have a $35 parking ticket, and now they're not going to persist and get their degree because you couldn't come up with a way to make it easier for them to either pay that ticket or resolve that issue. So I think when we pivot to talk about how the web is important, it's creating those frictionless experiences that allow students to move seamlessly like butter through their entire educational process. And so as marketers, we have to think not just about the copy that attracts students, not just about the content that brings them to us, but the content that keeps them here, keeps them excited, passionate, enthusiastic, and engaged in the process.
I love the fact that you immediately addressed the retention part of it, because I think that's often overlooked. And we had a webinar on the topic last year, and one of the things that we talked about was you cannot recruit yourself out of this enrollment cliff, right? So no matter how successful your recruitment efforts are, you still have to keep the students that you have. And so this needs to be such an integral part of your strategy. Allison, maybe you can talk a little bit more about the recruitment strategy and what kind of kind of role websites can play in that regard?
Well, first I want to add on to what Jamie's saying, because I think if we switch our thinking from retention to student experience, that's where we can start to think about how does marketing play a role and how does marketing help? Because there will never be a replacement for word of mouth marketing. What can we do to enhance the student experience? Because that is more powerful than any ad campaign we can ever run. It's going to have stronger ROI than anything that we can ever produce, any message or content that we do. So we have to think about that first. That really has to be a priority in our minds, because that is marketing. The student experience is marketing, because it's the entire reputation of the college. So I think we have to kind of flip our mind. And of course, the website is a huge piece of that. It's that frictionless experience is really key to what students feel about their attendance and their enrollment at your college. So we have to think, how can we influence not just if they stay, but what they say about their experience. So we really have to think about that in terms of that powerful, and that will loop back around, by the way, to the recruiting, because that's like I was saying before, we have to fill these gaps that are coming because of different ways to find students and get enough students interested to keep meeting our enrollment goals and maintain our enrollment goals. Well, our students need to be the first place we're going, because they are our referrals. So that funnels right back into sort of the recruitment experience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Kristen, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, just thinking about the web as a recruitment tool, I've conducted a lot of web usability studies, and I've witnessed time and time again the confusion that prospective students have. It doesn't matter if they're undergraduate or graduate, it does not matter. They always seem to have the same experience, clicking around too much, getting lost before finally finding what they've been asked to find by the test conductor. And more often than not, they get so frustrated by the task that they just ditch the website altogether, head over to Google, throw in, the term, find the page they're looking for, hop back on the site, and that just makes a disjointed journey and user experience. So we need to streamline content and keep it short. We need to be mindful of how many clicks it takes to get to the information that the prospect or the newly admitted student, family, whoever the prospect audience is that we're trying to reach, and get it to them as quickly and in as few as clicks as possible. Dave from Ology nailed it yesterday when she said that we all need to be mindful of cognitive load and always keep the nurture aspect in mind and all the web content and journeys we craft. One other thing I just want to share with you all is a few months ago, I participated in an AI workshop, and it was eye-opening. The higher ed marketing participants were all instructed to head to ChatGPT, and everyone asked ChatGPT to describe the average student attending their institution. And I was floored at what ChatGPT said about the institution I was representing. The description it provided rang true to the brand about 15 years ago. It did not ring true to the brand today. And it didn't describe the current modern student body. It missed out on the diversity piece that was really present on the campus today. And it missed an entire school with all of the programs in that school. So, today's prospects are using AI to search for schools that are a fit for them. We all know this is a fact. So if you haven't done this exercise yourself, I recommend that you all do that as soon as possible to see how AI is scraping your institution's website. And as web editors, audit your site and remove the pages that are stale, dead, or irrelevant. Because your website shouldn't be an archival system, and we need to figure out how to make relevant content on the site, get rid of the stuff that is no longer serving the institution so that AI can give a proper description to our external audiences.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. I love that you mentioned Dave's presentation yesterday. I actually will have a follow-up question about this. And you all mentioned diversity. So as we know that we can't just focus on the on the high school graduate anymore. So some of the demographics that are getting more and more attention are just the adult learners, the career changers, international students, making somewhat of a comeback. But yeah, most importantly, I think it's the older demographic and people that maybe have started their degree several years ago, and we want them back. So I'm just curious, how can your content strategy be adjusted to now address the concerns and interests of a more diverse prospective student pool, so to speak?
I'll start. I think the first thing is, right now, you need to nail down your identity and what's special about your institution, because what's going to be really hard is to keep that centered on that as you go to these different audiences. And the last thing you want to do is have confusion about your brand and who you're serving and what the experience is going to be like. So I like to start there. But you're right. We have to realize that we have all different kinds of people coming to our websites. I mean, the advantage, at least for us, is we've always been serving a lot of different audiences out of our website, right? So for once, this is going to help us, everyone, because it's always been so hard to speak to the prospective student and the current student and the faculty and staff and the alumni, right? Like, it's one of our great challenges. Well, maybe now this has prepared us for this moment, that we're going to have more diverse audiences interested in our college. And it's not even the different types of learners and their ages, even the undergraduate students that we're talking about, they're going to be much more diverse. I have a kindergartner, and in her kindergarten, her school is within 2 miles of our campus. She is white and she is a minority in her kindergarten class. Okay. But Siena, we're a predominantly white institution. How do we need to be shifting to be able to ensure that we're going to be welcoming the student body to come? We got to be thinking about these things. We can't wait until it's at our doorstep. We have to so we really have to focus in on our identity, who we are, and nail that down before we have to work before we're forced to worry about all the rest, right? But because if we have that, we'll have consistency. But we have to be starting to think from all different kinds of perspectives. But again, I think we're trained well for that. All of you on here, you do that all the time. It's one of the things you struggle with on a daily basis. This is going to, that experience is going to be helpful as you help your college's position for this future.
And I love what Allison just said, and I would just add to that too, thinking about developing personas for the different audiences that you can serve. So thinking about those non-traditional learners, what are they looking for? What drives them? Because that's going to be super different from what a traditional aged first-year student is looking for. And so how can you craft those personas and then create content that meets those needs? And when you're thinking about how you might approach that, ChatGPT and other AI tools can help you by refining those personas, by asking the questions, acting as an expert in higher education marketing, drilling down further using those tools to build more robust personas than I think we were able to do in the past in a much quicker way. And then we now have the technology and the tools to really then take those personas and create segmented communications for those audiences in ways that would have seemed like magic when I started working in higher ed in 2004. Like, it just would not have been possible. And so harness the technology, leverage the technology, use the technology to reach that audience with a message that centers them in the story. They really don't care about our story, right? That's not what is important to them. What is important to them is what are they going to get out of their experience at the institution. And at a time when the value proposition for higher ed has been questioned like no other time in history, that is what really needs to get to the heart of what people are looking for, is what's in it for them. How will they benefit? And I saw a terrifying headline in Inside Higher Ed today that said 52% of recent graduates are underemployed. And when that kind of messaging is out there in the world, we really have to work hard to combat that.
Yeah.
Jamie, I don't think we're far off from a world where when someone comes to our website, AI will then provide the right content based on who they are, based on what they're looking for, what they type into the search, what they typed in the search before they got to the site. So I think one of the skills we're all going to need to develop is we're going to have to train the AI that does that on our website, right? So that it does it in the right way and it's using the right personas. But I think we're going to be not having to write everything, for instance. But I think we're going to have to train and really know our personas and know our brand really well. And that's going to happen seamlessly for the end user. Anyway, I think that's where this is all going. I don't know how fast though.
I think we're already tiptoeing into that world, Allison. You know, there's a product that is an AI-like generator that will pull information off a website for prospective grad students. And my experience using that is the content on the site wasn't where it needed to be. So the tool wasn't working the way it was working all right. Mm-hmm. But it was when we tested it, it was frustrating for the end user. So yeah, again, getting things in order so that personalization is seamless and easy for the prospective student. We're almost, I think we're there.
I'm so glad you brought up personalization because I wanted to have everybody, chime in once again. Clearly, we are big proponents of personalization, but yeah, in your opinion, how important is website personalization in engaging prospective students from very diverse demographic backgrounds?
Yeah, I think it's critical. And, it seems like a daunting task to a lot of people. How do we personalize our website? Where do we even start? But we know this is what the consumer wants. A one-size-fits-all approach is not going to help engage students with varying backgrounds and needs. So, my recommendation based on doing this over the past several years is to compile a working group to accomplish the task of creating new pages or microsites for certain groups. And maybe it's your web content writer, an editor, a photographer. Again, stock images are not going to work. So just avoid the Band-Aid of using them, please. A data analytics person and a CRM administrator. Start building pages with, a handful of populations in mind. You're not going to tackle everything all at once. So start out small. Maybe it's 3 different populations that are top level. And just bullet out the values of each population so that the working group can easily understand the values and craft appropriately. The personalized pages need to message directly to the audience by recognizing their specific needs and doing so in a short, digestible, to the point manner, using icons that are visual, that say a lot visually, and of course, real students on your campus and images. Have that CTA be prominent and high if you need one on the page. Obviously, that goes without saying. But the nurture aspect needs to be there. A thing you may want to think about is creating a secondary qualifier after an RFI is filled out that can assist you with bucketing prospects appropriately into the CRN and leading them to the most appropriate personalized page. So we know Gen Z likes those Quizlets and quick answer engagements. So this is an easy way to go ahead and do it inside the portal. Of course, you can do it in email, but I think the portal is a better tool. And with a few short radial buttons, you can easily bucket those prospects into distinct groups, speak to them with an authentic tone, and then the data is going to be there for you to kind of look at, watch, and adapt things appropriately.
Yeah, I'd say if you're going to do personalization is obviously critical, but it has to follow through. So if you've got the website down, that's great. But if it doesn't follow through to then the communications and the rest of the experience that the students are having through the recruitment cycle, then you're just losing so much ROI on it, right? Like it's just such a missed opportunity. So you really have to think how you can scale personalization and scale personal on the other end too. And I think part of it is we're rethinking people's roles. Mm-hmm. And AI might help. Are we going to need as much actual manpower, for instance, on reading applications? Maybe not. Can that be redeployed to be able to scale really one-to-one personal kind of recruitment experience, the kind that we have for a lot of grad programs. Can we get that going across all kinds of programs? Because that's going to become the expectation. And we know at Siena that when a student has a one-to-one personal interaction with a counselor, they are 2.4 times more likely to enroll. So personalization, and not even just based on persona, like personalization, like they know me and specifically what my goals are and what I want out of the experience. That's what we've got to get to. And I think AI is going to help us, but we have to think about it all the way around, full circle, because if we just do the website, then it's not going to have the impact that we hope it will.
Yeah, and you're making a good point here, that the whole experience needs to be tailored, and the whole experience needs to be very seamless. And Kristen mentioned the keynote yesterday that they did on just the fact that a lot of times we mean well, and we want to be helpful. And in order to be helpful, what do? We create more content, right?
Yeah.
So we have all these pages out there, but if we're not careful, it's going to actually decrease the user experience and make it worse, because it's so much harder to find the things that you're looking for. And so, that's hopefully where, Jamie, you mentioned have different microsites, so people are in smaller rooms where they, you can't get lost in smaller rooms as much. But I was just curious, how do you think website personalization could be used to essentially reduce the number of pages on a site while catering to the needs of individual website visitors?
I almost feel like you have to have a shadow website. That's the website that faculty and staff all think is the real website, and it has all of their PDFs and all of their junk things, and no offense to any deans, but the dean's messages and all of that. But really, I mean, at the end of the day, I had a boss in 2008 who told me he wanted us to run out of clicks. And at the time, I was like, I don't fully understand what you mean by that, Art. But what he meant was you shouldn't have so much content that you can click forever. You need to be able to have the content be tight. And it's not this constant, now you're clicking here, now you're clicking here, now you're clicking here, now you're clicking here, now you're clicking here. And I think one of the great joys of having been in this profession as long as I have, and having worked in have web be part of my portfolio for most of that time, is being able to see the evolution from everything had its own page to now we're seeing sort of these mega pages that have guideposts along the way to get you to the content that you're trying to find, so people aren't just constantly clicking. I would love it if we could just banish PDFs from the web and get just purely content in a web-friendly form that's scalable and resizable and all of those good things.
When I worked at UMass Lowell, we ridded the entire website of PDFs. It took a long time, but we did it. And
You're my hero.
Yeah, that's a conversation for another day. It took a while, but it also comes down to that ADA compliancy, and think about those people who how that's going to impact those people, and respectfully, we need to serve everyone. So it was a daunting task, but that is a pride point for my colleagues and I
can't believe I'm in the year 2024 and I am still having to tell people you can't send an email as a JPEG. And the whole accessibility piece, if we start having a universal design approach to things, we will start to create that frictionless experience, because a lot of the principles of universal design will reduce friction for everyone.
Yeah. Well, to me, it's centering on the audience, because the reason we do those things is because it's easier for us, or it's how we want to do it. If everything we do, we're first thinking, what do they need and how do they need to receive it, then we won't screw it up so much. But we tend in higher ed, I think, to be think institutional first. even with messaging, right? We think we mostly think about what do we want to say? What do we want to people to know about us rather than does my audience need to hear? So I think it's honestly a cultural shift that needs to happen in order to make those fix those things.
Yeah. Well, how many of us, our campuses say we're student-centered, right? Like everyone.
If you're not, then how are
right?
Yeah.
But are we? When we build our websites, are we student-centered? I don't know that we are always. I think, to your point, Allison, we're very institution-centered.
Yeah.
And even just the structure of the silos that somebody has to know to navigate a website. Like, it's ridiculous.
The arrogance of thinking everyone will understand our organizational structure, even though every college has a different one. Even how about even thinking that our employees, people who work at the college, will be able to find what they need within the organizational structure that is reflected on the website.
I've definitely seen my fair share of higher ed websites. When you look at it, you can tell what the org structure is, and the org chart is driving the content. And
yes, completely. And respectfully, I think we're all around the same age here, and maybe we just need to ask our students for their input a little more, because we're trying to act like our prospects, and we're missing the point sometimes when we're crafting these journeys and these this web content. So sometimes if you have a student worker in your office, or maybe it's something where we have them chime in a little bit, and help guide us,
Of focus groups. Focus groups are amazing, and they're a great resource. And we have thousands of students on our campuses who would love to give their opinions for a slice of pizza. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think a lot of times when we look at higher education websites, I think there are a lot of times when websites are underestimated, or the impact is underestimated. Sometimes it's like, it's just a web page. Well, it's not just a web page. The experience on that web page can literally change somebody's life. Are they going to find what they're looking for? Is the message going to resonate with them, or are they going to move on? And this could be somebody that you would love to have at your university that could go on to do great things. So, even the small things can have such a lasting ripple effect. Yeah. So thank you definitely for pointing that out. I wanted to quickly talk a little bit about budget, because that's such a important topic, and a lot of times budget is becoming an obstacle. And in one of our webinars previously, we asked our attendees about some of the main obstacles to using personalization to navigate the enrollment cliff, and the overarching response was lack of budget. It's not just about personalization, but it's just applying the right methodologies to attract the right students and retain the right students. So, when they're talking about budget, it included money for technology, but even, more importantly, appropriate staff and resources. So I was just curious, what would you recommend to marketers to secure appropriate budgets for strategies to help mitigate and survive this cliff?
I think the most direct route is find a way to tie it to revenue so that it doesn't feel like a cost. It feels like an investment, a no-brainer investment. That's really what we have to get to. So for instance, if you're able to track something that you're personalized right now, or a test, and you're able to track through that, you track that as an interaction for each student that you know of that is using that personal resource, then you're able to at the end see how many of them enrolled and what was the impact on that. So for the students who have it, how much more revenue are you generating versus the ones who don't have it? So you've got to really set up a data structure that is tracking all of these interactions a student might have along the path. I think that's the best way. I wish I could say just go in and get the money because this is obvious, but unfortunately it's not that way. So you really have to be able to sell the story. Like that's our job, right? We got to sell the story. We have to have the data that backs up the story. And so that's my best advice, to really be tracking that data so that you can put it in terms of revenue.
One thing that the great, amazing CFO at Miami University, David Kramer, said was, you can't cut yourself out of a budget crisis, especially when it comes to marketing and admissions. And so he always held those two areas as areas that he didn't think that there was value in cutting, because we need those areas to be able to generate revenue. And I feel sorry for the campuses where that's the first place they cut. And that's often the case. And I think Allison's point about being able to demonstrate the ROI and being able to show the return on every dollar that you spend in marketing generates this many dollars. But you also have to be able to demonstrate that you're using those dollars really frugally and intentionally. Like if you're, spending on things that aren't having an impact, or you appear to be spending money recklessly, or filling positions that don't feed that bottom line, you're not going to get that money in the future.
Yeah. When you can talk about how you've looked at everything to optimize and reallocate in the same time that you're asking for additional funds, that is a good point, Jaime, because it can't just be more. It has to be, I evaluated everything we did, soup to nuts, to make sure that I have optimized everything first before I came and asked for additional funds. I think that is a brilliant point.
Yeah. Budgets are a difficult fact for everyone here, and I've been challenged this way time and time again. When I represented UMass Lowell, we had a modest budget, and it was our reality, but there were ways to work around budget constraints. And first, everyone has to get creative and throw spaghetti at walls with team members and see what sticks, and try something that's just crazy, but let's just try it and see. So if you don't have financial resources for the tech product you need, can you develop something in-house? And I will say, I understand not everybody has the staff to do things like that. While I was there, we had a 45-person staff with web developers and designers. So when we couldn't afford a digital view book, we created one. That's not everybody's reality. Yeah. But, this is just what we need. If you can't figure it out internally with the resources you have, then and you need something that's going to improve outcomes, then you need to advocate for it. And that's going to look different for each person here, given the culture at your school and the personalities of the individuals that you report to, but show them the financial challenges of not having this piece or this thing fulfilled. And that's going to be the difference. See, we can't just do the same thing we've been doing over and over and over. We all realize that's not working. So shifting finances and getting that buy-in is going to be critical moving forward.
Speaking of buy-in, I was just curious, how can higher education leaders foster collaboration between marketing, admissions, and IT, for example, to ensure a more cohesive and effective response to this enrollment cliff?
I think you've got to be first to invite others to the table. We just redid our marketing strategy last year, and we had cross-functional representation on it. And so you can't, if you want to have collaboration, then you have to be the collaborator. You can't make the marketing strategy, but then wish everyone would come to the table on the next topic. You have to show the way and show how it can work. And so I think you absolutely have to start there.
Yeah, I think the relationship between the three divisions needs to be nurtured with regular connectivity. And Allison, you're right. I think it starts with marketing, but that doesn't mean more meetings. I know everyone is in too many meetings, but maybe it means reimagining a meeting with the right people involved to achieve goals. Or I don't know how my colleagues would respond to this, but I was a huge fan of the 15-minute coffee catch up once a week with certain stakeholders, or the casual Teams message. Can I stop by for 5 minutes today? And just popping into somebody's office, or if for those of you who are remote, sending that message on Teams and popping onto Zoom or a Teams video for 5 minutes, and just having that quick spitball interaction. But you need to do it on a regular basis. Do not try to tackle this on your own. You need to have all three of those teams. They're the legs of the stool. and they support one another in the mission. So make sure that you talk with those people and collaborate with them on a regular basis.
And really put aside ego. I've seen too many places where the marketing leader and the enrollment leader don't get along, and there's like this sort of push back and forth, and somebody has to be the bigger person. And if you're listening to this, just decide it's going to be you, because that's somebody has to be in those situations, and you just can't shut down and not speak to each other and not engage with each other. Just put ego aside and do what's right for the institution and for the students.
Here's the thing, especially about marketing and missions. We are not on the front lines, the marketers, talking to students every day, talking to prospective students. The admissions team is, the financial aid counselors are. Mm-hmm. So we have to realize what an advantage that is, what an opportunity that is, and to lean on their expertise, even when we want to say, well, that's our job. Mm-hmm. We really do. I agree, Jamie, have to let go of that ego.
Mm-hmm. In theory, we're all in this together, right?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed from talking with our customers is that there's still a bit of a reluctance when it comes to data sharing, right? So typically marketing is in charge of the CMS and the overall messaging. And then of course, enrollment is in charge of the CRM, and so then we don't know. Marketing often doesn't even know if what they're doing on their end is actually, generating the desired results, which at the end of the day is enrolled students. Mm-hmm. So how would you approach a situation like that? I'm sure that resonates with a lot of our attendees right now.
Clarity on your goal, because we, like Jamie just said, we're all in the same boat, and we all have the same things that we want to come out of it. So if you get everyone around the table and our goal is the enrollment number, whatever it is, then you got to create not just the brainstorm and the action plans, not just the ideas, but how are we going to track if those ideas were successful? So, but it has to start with absolute clarity on what it is we're trying to achieve. So then you can, I think part of the data sharing thing is it feels too overwhelming.
Yeah.
Mm. So if we can get everyone around clarity around specific goals, then we can set up those things that are needed, right? And then the rest will come. So when we talk about, just start sharing data across, that feels like a lot. There's a lot of data. And so we have to collaborate around a specific piece to start, and then it will become the culture. It will become how you operate, but you have to start somewhere, and it has to start around that shared goal.
I've seen this territoriality is sometimes caused a little bit by defensiveness too. Like admissions may not want marketing to see the data because they're afraid it's not painting the picture that they're trying to paint to leadership. And so I think you have to build a level of trust that you're not going to take a piece of data or a data point or something and take that up to the president and say, I'm raising a flag on this terrible thing that I'm seeing, but build that trust that if you have any questions or concerns about the data, you're going to talk directly to your admission counterpart about that, so that they're not afraid that you're going to start countermanding their story. I think we've all been in situations likely where admissions has painted a rosier picture of what fall is going to look like than actually is the reality. And so you have to kind of understand that when you go into the conversations.
Yes. Yeah. My experience has been, we don't want marketing in our CRM. You're going to mess something up. And I hear that, and there, and I understand it's their CRM, but it's difficult to take the data that you're producing for digital advertising, and there's a break-off point, and there isn't clean data when data doesn't flow in and out. So the trust piece is important for sure.
Yeah. Looks like this is a touchy subject for just reading the comments. There's not many questions, but definitely comments that show that it definitely hits home for a lot of people, and everybody's on board with down with PDFs. We all hate PDFs, so that's good. Another question here. So as we are looking into the future, what are some of the other emerging trends that you're seeing in higher education marketing that institutions should be aware of in order to properly prepare for the future?
I mean, AI is changing so much. So I think that's the obvious, piece is, just learn AI, learn how it's going to change everything we do, and embrace the change.
I think looking and being different. Actually, I'm gonna backtrack that, because we're not all that different. So it's not different, but what's special? What is special about your institution, and how can you make the student feel special? I think it's on special, and it's the different ways that colleges approach that, and everyone's going to have their own way because they're going to have their special way of doing it. But that's what, listen, this is only going to get more competitive, and we're only sounding more and more alike. So we really have to focus in on special so that we can stand out.
And I'm going to drag my soapbox over here and get up on it. I think a trend that has been coming for a long time that not every institution, particularly every institution's HR office, understands. Back in 2004, when I started working in higher ed, you could have a whole office of generalists and be just fine. And you could pay those generalists a generalist salary. That is not the reality anymore. We need specialists. We need people who have a depth of expertise in the technology, in the tools, in all of that. And that requires paying people more. That requires position descriptions that fall outside of PR specialist 3 or fill in the blank with whatever wonky public institution pay band scale that we have. It means re-looking at every single position in a department, and when you get vacancies, how can you hire a specialist to replace that role? We have to have specialized marketers in our offices, and I will die on that hill.
And I'd add the professional development that goes along with that, because AI and other things are changing our work so fast. That is not where you should not be cutting back. We have to stay on top of it. So we need to support the professional development of those experts.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think this is a good time to close out this discussion, because that is such a powerful message. So any additional questions that I have would just be diluting what you all just said, because I could not agree more. This is so important. Well, what a great discussion. Jaime, Allison, Kristen, thank you so much for your insights, for your expertise, for your thoughtfulness, and for your candor, honestly. So thank you so much. I know that your contact information will be available here on in the app. So I hope it's okay if our participants reach out to you for advice. I think this was just wonderful. Would love to do it again, maybe in one of our sessions that we'll have coming up this year. So thank you, all of you, very, very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And thank you to all of our attendees here for your interest. Adapting to the changing circumstances here is key to survival, as our participants said here, and the key to success. So I'm certain that this session gave you some valuable insights that you can share with your team and with your stakeholders. So sadly, this concludes this year's user conference, and I hope you all enjoyed the sessions that you've attended over the past few days here. And yeah, please check out the ones that you didn't get a chance to attend. The videos are already available on demand, so that was a very, very quick turnaround. Once again, thank you to all the amazing presenters, to all of the attendees, our sponsors, and of course, the Hand & Hill team. So proud of y'all. So we hope you enjoyed yourselves, and you have a lot of ideas and insights that will help your organizations share their vision and achieve their goals through your web strategy. You all do such important work, and we are so grateful to be part of that. Well, you know where to find us. You know you'll hear from us for sure. So once again, please take us up on our request for check-in calls. Continue to be candid with your feedback. And yeah, let's continue to do great things. Speak soon. Thank you so much.